Welcome to another exciting edition of the Growth Clinic. This is a community event, and what we do here is we share knowledge and techniques to help you grow. So first off, we want to thank you so much for joining us here today, being part of our community. We hope you find it useful, and if you do, please share it, invite your friends, invite your colleagues. We'd love to have them as well. And as always, we want this to be the most valuable hour of your week. So please drop your questions, comments in the chat. We'll do our best to answer every single one. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Quick intro. I'm Jared Flegel, Director of Marketing here at WebMechanix. Our fearless leader and CEO, Chris Mechanic, is out this week. He is at a client meeting. But we have a very special guest today who I'm excited to introduce in a moment here, because today we are talking all about competitors. Love them or hate them, we've pretty much all got them. Direct competitors, indirect competitors, alternatives. So as marketers, we have to deal with them. How do we not only deal with competitors, but potentially use competitors to our advantage, and also get creative about how we kind of find our niche in the marketplace and kind of get that upper hand on folks that might be trying to conquest us. So we've got the perfect person to discuss this today. She is actually a long-term WebMechanix team member. She is pretty close to my tenure, going up on 9, maybe 10 years now, almost to the decade mark. She is a brilliant digital marketer. She's an incredible strategist. She has managed some of our keyest of key accounts here at WebMechanix. She is the goddess of strategy, director of strategy, Camille Bosley. Welcome to the Growth Clinic.
You're making me blush, Jared. Happy to be here, since this is one of the most exciting and fun things for me to do. So I'm excited to chat through it.
Love it. Well, let's dive right in. So first of all, before we get into the nitty gritty, why should we even really care about what our competitors are doing? Like, what's the benefit of worrying about our competitors or thinking about our competitors?
That is a very good question. While we would probably love to imagine that our competitors do not exist, they do. And any smart consumer is going to be doing a lot of research before they decide who they're going to move forward with, whether you are a product or a service or B2B or B2C. So I like to think that you have to be able to be found by your customers, which is not always an easy thing to do, to make yourself easy to find. But you could have the perfect solution for the perfect customer, but if they're not able to find you, or we don't have the right message in front of them, the competitors give them that advantage to kind of swoop in and steal who could be the best fit for us. So can't ignore them as much as we'd love to. Let's learn from them and make sure that we're putting our best face forward, no matter what market we're in.
Cool, you sold me. Got to care about competitors. Love it. So how do we start this process? So I imagine the first step is to do competitor research. How can we do competitor research? Because there's a lot of data we could gather on competitors, right? But how do we do research and understand our competitors in a way that's actionable for digital marketing?
The best way that I like to think about it is, if you're going to go on this competitive research, competitive analysis journey, it's good to have like an end goal, or even better, an end deliverable in mind. And a great way to frame that I think a lot of us are familiar with, is a form of a SWOT analysis. So you're going to take yourself, you're going to look at your competitors, and as you're going through all of this research, you want to be able to identify, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a company, so that ultimately you can put actions in place to improve your messaging market. And then meet your competitors. What are your opportunities and threats? What are you doing better? And where are they out competing you, so that you can kind of figure out how you can narrow the gap with where they are against you in the market. I find that to be a very valuable thing. I also find that, whether it's a note stock or however you decide to take all of these findings and put them in place, I've seen a lot of value in sharing this across, basically making this a conversation across different departments in your organization. Because as you're going through and sharing your findings, everyone at your company comes from different backgrounds, different experiences, everyone has different roles. So there's always going to be something that you may identify as an opportunity, or you may identify as a weakness, and somebody else may be able to come to the table with the best way to exploit that item in your overall strategy. So that's what I feel like the best way to kick it off and get started. Just keep like a SWOT analysis in mind. And every time you're digging, okay, what am I learning and how can I slot it into one area of this grid along the way?
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So SWOT analysis, share it with the team, get their feedback on it so you can clear your blind spots. It makes a lot of sense. So how do we do that from a nitty-gritty perspective? What are some tools we can use? How can we think about like actually actioning competitor research and doing it?
Yeah, this is I could spend all day walking through the tools that I love to use to kind of figure out what competitors are doing and how we stack up against them. I've narrowed myself down to 4 that I'm going to share today. 2 of which are completely free, easy things that you can do. 2 of which are paid tools, but I believe they both have free trials. So we'll walk through all 4 of those. But one thing that I'll say is like the great place to start is making sure that you have a good idea of like how people are finding you right now, just so you have an idea of like, where do I stand as a company before we start diving into what our competitors are doing. Google Analytics, one easy tool to look at to figure out how people are getting to your website, how people are finding you. Are they finding you organically? Are you relying on your paid ads for them to find you? If you're looking at referral websites, which websites are referring people to your website? Because that'll give you a good landscape about how other companies are talking about you. And then the other thing is Google Search Console, and that's really important to understand keywords. A lot of times we like to assume what people are searching, and we may be right what people are searching to find us, but we're not always correct. So Google Search Console is really good at helping us understand what people are actually typing into Google to find us, so that we can then use those terms in our keyword analysis. So that would be like the first thing that I would say to check off your box, just making sure you have just a basic lay of how people are getting to your website and what people are actually searching to find you. Let me share my screen. And if anyone has questions at any point in time, please feel free to either unmute yourself and ask them if you're feeling brave, or drop them in the chat if you're not feeling as brave or you're multitasking and eating lunch. Totally okay too.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely drop questions in the chat as Camille's pulling that up. I'm also curious if you can just drop in the chat if you're a B2B or B2C company or organization.
And that's a great question. I did the 2 companies / examples that I'm planning to walk through with these tools. I wanted to have one B2B, one B2C, just to kind of be able to speak to both experiences. So for B2B, I'm looking at B2B. I'm a big HubSpot fan. I'm getting ready to go to inbound, so they are front of mind for me. So that's going to be B2B CRM is going to be kind of the angle we will get for the B2B side. And then for B2C, I've been watching a lot of Shark Tank recently, and Ring is on my mind. So home security cameras, that type of keyword research for ring.com, that'll be what we look at on the B2C side. The first tool that I have on my screen that we have been fans of at WebMechanix for a very, very long time is called Spyfu, SPYFU.com. I believe there's a free variation of this. They also have a paid subscription that you can use. But what's really nice about Spyfu is it's a great place to start your research because they cover a lot of different angles of the competitive analysis when it comes to how people are finding you. So using ring.com as our example, you can put any domain in here. So it could be your own, or if you know who your top competitors are, you can drop them in here as well, to kind of get a feel for how much traffic they're getting, where is that traffic coming from. They have some great tabs at the top that speak to SEO research, PPC research, keywords, backlinks, all that good stuff. My one pro tip with Spyfu is to just make sure you take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. They will try to estimate how much your competitors are spending for paid media, which I know we have a lot of clients that use to kind of gauge what they should be spending. Are they over or under, indexing compared to the rest of their competitors? So take it with a grain of salt. Maybe they say you're spending $20,000 a month, but you're actually spending 30. You can probably say that ratio is the same about what they're saying about your competitors. Because what they do is they try to figure out what keywords your ads are showing up for, what an average cost per click is, how often you're showing up, and then they'll kind of do that math to figure out what your ideal budget, what you're likely spending right now. What's really nice is they have this nice competitors tab already built out. So this is really good to understand kind of what keywords your competitors are targeting on paid media. Are there gaps and areas for you to expand into that you aren't right now? They'll automatically try to guess what they see as your main competitors. If you say, why is that's not actually, for us, that's more so for, apartments or people that don't have their own homes, you can take that out of the mix. That was just a fabrication. But then you can come down and they'll show you how many keywords do you share together, how many more clicks are you getting than the rest of your competitors, or vice versa, and then what you're paying on average for those clicks. So this is one of my favorite tools, just to dive in and get a feel for what that high level comparison looks like. Backlinks, this is another great area for understanding, SEO, earned traffic. You're going to put out great content. You're going to try to get people to your website. PPC is paid. You're going to pay money to get people to come to your website. But backlinks are another thing that I think a lot of people overlook in their digital media strategy, just because it takes more time, it's more intensive. You may send out and try to request 10 backlinks and only get one back, which can be, it can feel like a defeat. But really that one backlink that you're able to secure is going to be so valuable for you in the long term. And a great way to figure out where you should try to get backlinks from is looking at where your competitors already have them. So maybe they're working with a lot of journalists in the area to tell the stories there. Maybe they're working with a lot of software aggregators. This is a great way to kind of figure out where they're getting those backlinks from. I know I tend to speak quickly too, so Jared, if I am, just let me know.
No, you're good. No, this is excellent.
Yeah, so this is all, and they'll give you example links too of what kind of websites are linking back to you, back to your competitors. SEMrush, I'm going to hop over to as well. This is another paid tool. I believe they have a free trial. I highly recommend SEMrush. This is one of the best tools that we use for SEO research, not only for your own marketing strategy, because it'll tell you when your keyword rankings are increasing, dropping, how you compare to competitors, but this is a great place to do your competitive research as well. I've got Ring in here. We're looking at just overall Ring performance, how their website traffic, etc. But if I come down a little bit further, it'll actually tell me who SEMrush sees as my main organic competitors. And I do the same thing for paid media. So Smart Home Point, safehome.org. If I come in and look at those competitive keywords, it'll give you what they call a keyword gap report. And what that tells you is what types of terms your competitors are targeting that you are not. And this is really helpful in a lot of ways. One could be for your blog strategy. If you're looking for topics to write about and you want to make sure that those topics are going to drive traffic to your website, a great thing to do is look at this keyword gap report, because your competitors are already targeting these terms. Your competitors are already showing up here. And if you aren't, this is a way to make sure that you have that share of voice in the conversation at different points of the funnel. It could be bottom of the funnel, someone's ready to buy right now, or it could be somebody that's still exploring, waiting for those Black Friday deals. They don't know what they're going to purchase when that time comes. Now you can help them figure out what's important to look for in a security system if you are Ring.com. This tool will let you add in a couple different competitors as well. So I think with Simply Safe was one of the other ones.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Maybe it's something like that. So you can add multiple competitors in here if you know your competitors' domains. And then when you come down, this is where they'll actually show you those keywords. So a lot of these are branded terms. This is showing shared keywords that we have between them. But if I look at this gap and kind of where there's, this will show us what our ranking is as Ring.com compared to our competitors. Ring's got a lot of market share for all of these branded terms, so that's one thing to notice. But what's really cool is they'll also tell you what the intent of these keywords are. So this is really helpful if you're looking to figure out which area of the funnel you should focus on. So, do you want to focus on informational questions? for people that are still doing their research, or transactional where they're ready to buy right now. So it'll give you that indicator of what those different terms are attracting. It'll tell you how often that keyword is being searched a month, how competitive it is, what the average cost per click is. There's a plethora. We could go through, we probably could go through a whole growth clinic just on SEMrush, because it's such a fantastic tool. But this is another one to add into your arsenal of tools. So those two paid tools, lots of good data.
Yeah, Camille, I was just going to add, it seems like that CPC aspect is really helpful, because if the CPC that people are paying for that keyword is relatively high, then if you're able to earn that traffic for free, then that's probably a good keyword to be thinking about, right? Because of the value of that traffic.
Yes, absolutely. And there's if you do find that you're specifically trying to close the gap or figure out how to expand in a paid market, if you're already using Google Ads, there's a tool inside of Google Ads called the Auction Insights, and that will show you where you and your competitors are currently ranking, how much market share they have over you or under you. So that's another really good tool that I don't have pulled up today. If you're already running Google Ads, that's a free tool that's already at your disposal. You can just type Auction Insights into the little search bar at the top, and it should take you right there. So very helpful for paid strategy. So these two tools, very helpful for keywords and backlinks and figuring out how to improve, how you can get traffic to your website. But another thing that I really like to look at, and this is really helpful if you have a creative team or you're working with a vendor that has a creative team, is the actual messaging that your competitors are putting out into the market. Because if you're showing up alongside them, do you have a stronger message than the other competitors in the market? Facebook, fun fact, has a free tool where you can see all of the ads that your competitors are running at any point in time if they're live. So this is where we're going to hop over to HubSpot as an example. If you are on any business page in Facebook, if you scroll down under photos, under videos, there's this section called page transparency. You gotta take a couple steps, they hide it, but it's valuable once you get in there. If you click this see all button, and then again, scroll all the way down to this section, there's an option to go to the ad library. And so this is a requirement now. Any ad that you are running on Facebook, they are going to show in this ad library. So I'm going to open up HubSpots. If you don't see anything in your competitor's page, it could be that they're just not running ads right now. It does not mean that they are not always running ads. It's just at that point in time when you're looking, there are not any live ads. And this gives you the full rundown of everything that's live. What's nice here is it can give you insight into the different formats of ads that your competitors are running. So maybe you're only running static images right now or GIFs, and you're trying to make a case that video is a great angle for your team to move in. If all of your competitors are running video ads and you're the only one not, this is a great way to verify that and kind of make the point that you need to be investing in that type of content. So HubSpot, they've got some fun pirate videos here for you. More pirate videos and more pirate videos, but there are some static ads down here. So this will show you it gives you all the copy supporting the ad as well as the image. I believe if I click these. Yeah, if you click the ad, it will also take you through to the landing page. So that's a really good way to kind of understand where users being taken when they click on ads. And social is a very different experience, paid social, than paid search would be. So we all like to click on a competitor's ad and make them pay that $2 so we can figure out what they're actually sending their traffic to. But for paid search, right, that's somebody that's actively looking for a solution, where social are more so, for lack of a better word, interrupting their experience. We have to take a different approach when we're doing paid social ads. Therefore, the landing page should match that intent. So it's good to make sure you have that comparison of what does the search landing page look like versus the social landing page. If they're using the same one, that's an opportunity for you to kind of differentiate what you're putting into the market for those two different audiences. So Facebook, fantastic, easy. Thank you, Meta, for giving us this option. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take screenshots of all the different ad variations and put them on a slide and do that for our ads versus our competitors, just so we can kind of see, what does the branding look like? What does the message look like? What types of words are they using? That's helpful for you for all of your messaging, but in particular can be helpful for the creative team who may not have these tools in their arsenal, to be able to say, look, this is what our competitors are putting into the market. Use that concept of 10x content. We want to be 10 times better than whatever our competitors are doing, and give that to your creative team so that they know what the bar is that they need to exceed for messaging and creative. So there's Facebook. The other option, there's a really cool tool called Note, also free. And this is another way to look at ads for all display ads that are running. So if they're using, if you or your competitors are using DV360, Google Display, I'm not sure if it pulls in native ads, but here if I put in outsmart.com, I think they only ask you to enter your LinkedIn account potentially. That might be your payment in order to get access to Note. I'm going to cooperate with you. I swear I put this up early. Interesting. Okay. Well, Note is not playing nicely. Note is not playing nicely at the moment, but it gives you an output that's very similar to what we saw on the Facebook side. Usually there's a much wider variety of ads that you'll see there, because a lot of times, if you're running display ads, you may have multiple campaigns ad groups for specific marketing audiences, specific display audiences, people with different intents, interests, etc. So you get a pretty wide variety of all of the messaging that's being put out into the market for your competitors, not just what's on social. So then you have that comparison as well.
Yep, that's great. And a couple more tools I'll throw out there. One is, so there are some paid tools that can help with this. SpyFu does have a paid version, but you can also use it for free and get some insights. There's a tool called AdSpy that does some stuff that's very similar to Moat. It's, I believe, very specifically for paid social, so Facebook ads and whatnot. Great tool for seeing what your competitors are doing on paid social and getting an aggregate view. If you're using LinkedIn or running LinkedIn ads, want to see what your competitors are doing, if you go to your competitor's company page and just go to posts, see all the posts they've done, and then click on ads, you see all their ads. Basically, you get the full, LinkedIn doesn't hide anything. So you're able to see exactly what ads are running, what any pages they're running to. And it's a great way to see how you can beat them and beat their messaging.
Great additions there. Yeah, I forgot about LinkedIn. It's very similar output to what Facebook has, but LinkedIn, very different targeting options, especially for B2B. A lot of insight that you can gain there. So we'll look at what that content looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So Camille, these tools are great. Thank you for walking us through them. So how would we, as we're gathering this intel, there are different situations in which we would use it, right? So for example, for companies B2B versus B2C, maybe we have a solution that's kind of new to the market, not a lot of people know about it, or maybe it's super saturated. So how might we use this intel that we're collecting differently depending upon kind of our segment of the market and the majority of our market?
That's a good question. Kind of figuring out what you're going to do with all this information, how to improve your positioning in the market. I think the best place to start is the search engine results page, because whether you're a B2B or B2C, you're the market saturated. All of that is kind of going to come to play when you're looking at what Google is serving to your audience. It's going to tell you the strategy that you need to take. Let me see if I can pull up. Let's do home security cameras. So if I was Ring and I was trying to figure out what Google looks like for people that are looking for home security cameras, there's a lot going on here, but that also means that there are a lot of opportunities to improve how I want to show up in the market. A couple of things that stand out. One, on the right-hand side, you want to see if there are shopping options. That means that you probably want to have a shopping option available on your website that Google can pull into. If you don't have that option, you can't show up, right? So that's an opportunity for your competitors to get an advantage over you, is to have all these options in the market. The other thing that I see here is that there are a lot of paid ads, which says to me that, even if I have the #1 ranking organic page, if I'm doing fantastic organically, I'm going to get pushed almost below. I have a big screen right now, so you're almost getting pushed below the fold by the ads. So you're probably going to need to have some form of ad presence if you want to drive as much traffic to your website, and also take a look at what they're saying. So Simply Safe, I noticed I was doing a little bit of digging before we hopped on for lunch today. Simply Safe is very big about using their name. If you look at them inside of either SEMrush or SpyFood, they're targeting a lot of Ring keywords. So they're taking that approach where they know that Ring is the leader in the market, and the best way for them to gain advantage is to target that competitor's keywords, make sure that their name is front and center. That could say like #1 alternative to Ring or #1 rated camera is what they have in here. If you are a local business, something that you're probably going to see in the search results page are local listings, which means that you want to make sure that is part of your competitive strategy. Do you have the right information? Do you have customer reviews so you can show up at the top of the list? Do you have keywords added into your description? So taking a look at the SERP, all of those additional elements are something you want to make sure you account for where your competitors are not and where they are, so you can make sure you are as well. That being said, another thing is to actually look at the organic listings that are showing up. If you're new to the market, if the market is not oversaturated, you're probably going to have a much better opportunity deploying a content strategy. And a great way to figure out if that's a good angle for you is if you actually see your competitors' names showing up as #1, #2, #3 in the organic results. Where you have a bit more of a challenge is when there's a lot of competition. And in those instances, especially if we're talking about software or tools or certifications, a lot of times the top ranking pages are going to be aggregators. So think like the G2 crowds, the software advices of the world. That's a whole separate strategy that you're going to want to make sure you don't out. Is your profile updated? Are you driving positive reviews? How do your reviews and how does your page compare to your competitors? So, I could go on and on and on here, but I think when you're trying to figure out what your first step should be in implementing what you find from your competitive analysis, taking your top keywords that Google Search Console is giving you, taking you the keywords that you want to rank for in that keyword gap analysis, putting them into Google and letting Google tell you how you're actually going to be able to make it onto this page, because it might not be your website directly as #1 in the organic search. It might be working through a third party, building relationships, building on a profile that as people are researching, they can then find your page. That was a
Absolutely.
long answer.
No, it was a perfect answer. And looking at this page, I see, so Tom's Guide and CNN, they're pretty authoritative sites, so that's why they're ranking really well. And they're doing these reviews, these guides of like the best cameras. So if I was a marketer at, Simply Safe or Ring, I'd be thinking, how can I build closer relationships with these high authority websites so that when they create these lists, I'm ranked and ideally reviewed well and prominently.
Absolutely. And there's some of these websites, like some of those Tom's Guides of the world, they are going to be pay to play. So you are going to have to, they may charge XYZ a year in order for you to show up on the list. And the other may be that it's not pay to play, it's based on your ranking, it's based on your reviews. A lot of times, if there's an individual writer or you can reach out and find who owns this content, who's responsible for it, you can usually ask them how they decide who gets added to the page and how they prioritize who's added to the page. Then you'll find out, is it, hey, we need to put a little financial boost behind this? Or, are they looking at reviews on other websites? Are they looking at different feature comparisons? In which case you may need to talk to your internal team, your product team to figure out, how do we get more reviews? What features are we working on that we can say are coming soon that may be very helpful and help boost your rankings on those pages? So one strategy, if you're trying to get in front of, if you find that like an aggregator strategy is going to be best for you, or even if backlinks are going to be really helpful for your SEO strategy, Dennis Yu, who's a phenomenal digital marketing guru, One strategy that he stands behind and has seen a lot of success with is running ad campaigns, either Facebook or LinkedIn, to reporters, writers, etc. in your industry, only putting like $5 a day behind those ads and boosting your content, a blog post that might be helpful, just to make sure that your company, your name, your brand is front of mind. They may, in a need for content, reach out to you, or when you reach out to them, that means they're going to have some reference of who you are, and it doesn't take a lot of money to make that happen. So very small budgets. I'm not sure if he has a name for that strategy, but if you look up Dennis Hughes boosted content journalists, I'm pretty certain you'll find it. I think he posted recently about it on LinkedIn too, so you can find it there as well.
Yeah, he also just actually came on our podcast, so I just linked that in the comments there. I believe he talks about that. I think he calls it the inception strategy, as well as similar strategies as well. And $1 a day is like his framework for advertising.
Dollar a day was the word that
$1 a day
for.
Yeah.
Yes, $1 a day is what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, love it. So Camille, this is super helpful. So so we've done our research. We've considered the intel and how it relates to our market. Now, how do we go about? At the end of this process, inevitably we'll have like a litany of opportunities. Like we see this, we see that. How do we prioritize those? How do we focus our competitor opportunities and work through them?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming when you dig in. And if you're like me, you kind of like roll your sleeves up. I can spend hours digging into this and coming out with like all the finding, all of the opportunities, everything that you could possibly do. Doesn't mean that you should do everything that you find. There are two things I would recommend doing. One is building out a effort versus impact matrix. And that could be, you could start out with a list and basically in a Google sheet, in an Excel spreadsheet, kind of list out every single thing that you think you could or should do based off of your competitive analysis. And we usually put it 2 columns next to that. One is effort. On a scale of 1 to 5, how much effort is this going to take to implement, right? If we're talking about changing and adding technical code to the website where you have to pull in a developer, and you may or may not have a developer, that's probably going to be a 5 in effort. If it's something as simple as, hey, we need to, get a couple customer reviews for our Google local listing, that may be a 3 if you already have a system built out for that and it's just adding some new emails in. So just kind of ratio, scale of 1 to 5, how much effort is it going to take? And then the other is impact. So how much is this going to improve your presence, improve your traffic, improve your messaging? Same thing, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, whatever you find is the best ratio for you, but 1 to 5 is typically what we stick with because it's easier to kind of say. 1 through 10, you get a little lenient. Is that a 6 or a 7? 3 or 4 makes a much bigger difference. So once you have all those in a spreadsheet, then you can kind of rank that, because if something has a low amount of effort and a high amount of impact, that's what you want to start with first, because it's going to be super easy and it's going to make the biggest change in your market. And then you kind of go down the list, what is going to take a little bit more effort and have high impact, as opposed to what's going to take a little bit more effort and have less of an impact. Those are going to be down the bottom of the list. So you can map those out on a grid if you're sharing this or presenting this to someone, but if it's just you and your team, spreadsheet is totally fine. And then a very important step to make sure you do not overlook is to kind of delegate out and assign roles to who can help you do that. A lot of these things are not going to only fall on the marketing team's shoulders. You may need to tap your retention team in order to figure out how we can get more customer reviews, or you may need to tap your product team in order to get a visual roadmap that you can put into different profiles and things like that. So lots of information, lots of fun opportunities, but if it's just sitting there on a spreadsheet, it's not going to be too fun for you. So you want to make sure that you've got a plan to actually roll these things out and implement them.
Yep, and I would definitely advocate for, if there's something that you can literally just pull off the shelf that is going to have a fairly high impact and do it pretty quickly, get it going, right?
Yes.
Action is what drives successful marketing. And,
yes.
Action over perfection, I would say. Listen, I've learned the hard way many times. Awesome. So Camille, so take us to some real world examples. So over the years, what are some of the favorite plays you've used or tactics to play offense against competitors or defense against competitors?
Yeah, there's some fun ones that I haven't really touched on yet. I'd say one thing that I love to do, and this kind of lets you put on your detective hat. I highly encourage everyone to go through their competitor sales processes if you have not done that yet. You want to figure out, if you're in an industry like B2B where there's a lot of white papers that are downloaded and you're getting dropped in the nurture campaigns, that can be a good way to figure out how frequently the competitors are reaching out. What are they sharing in those nurture campaigns? A good little trick in case you're worried about like using the same email address over and over again. Typically, if like my email is cbosley@webmechanix.com. If I want to be able to use my email address multiple times on a website and not be the same contact, I can do cbosley, add a plus sign, and add anything after the plus sign, and it creates a new email address. So it can be cbosley plus, whatever today's date is, 8/24/22 at webmechanix.com. So just a little tip in case you're worried about using the same email address too many times. But definitely recommend going through the sales process, to understand what the nurture campaigns look like. If there is a nurture process, are you going to get added to any remarketing campaigns now that you've been to the website? And then the other thing is like to actually get yourself on the phone and see what those conversations look like. Your customers, it's going to be a very similar customer for your competitors. So you figure, what kind of questions are they asking? What does their pitch and their messaging look like? How frequently are they following up? If you fill out a form, are they saying that it's going to take you, take 2 to 3 business days to get back to you? That's an opportunity for you, right? Because if your customers are doing their research on, let's call it Sunday night, because that's what customers do sometimes, and they're filling out a bunch of forms, is there a way for you to make sure that you're the first person to reach out? And maybe you find that your sales team may not be able to reach them until the next business day, but you can send them an email follow-up with a couple of things to check out and explore while they're waiting for that follow-up call. That's an opportunity for you to continue building your relationship with that customer while they're waiting for the other company to get back to them. So you want to make sure that you are front of mind, first to respond, really engaged. So that's always fun. And then we've seen this done where we actually have gone through 4 or 5 different companies' nurture processes and sales processes and kind of mapped out, here's the list of all the competitors. How quickly did they all respond? How many touch points did they have in their nurture campaign? How many, how frequently were those touch points being sent out? So it gives you just a bigger view of what your user's experience is, because the more you can understand what they're going through, the better you can kind of serve them. So that's a fun one. And then the other thing that I'd say is just kind of tapping into the different departments that you have access to. It's very easy in marketing to stay in the marketing bubble, but the more that we can pull and build relationships and understand with the sales team, with the products team, how we can improve the messaging that we put into the market to make their jobs easier and to improve the user experience. That's another thing to explore. So if your sales team right now does have fields built out for, someone is disqualified or if someone decides to go with a competitor, can they tell you why that's happening? If not, that might be an opportunity for us to add that field into your sales process. It was too expensive or we were missing features. That's information that we want to have. It's also good to hear directly from the customer, and this doesn't have to be an ongoing process, but maybe for the next 30 days, you create a list of everybody that decides to go with a competitor, and you send out a one-off email that says, hey, we're really sad that we weren't able to make this work together. What was it? People are usually happy to tell you about their experiences, especially if you didn't have what they wanted. Typically, I think we all see if you go on Yelp, a lot of times people are more likely to give their negative reviews than their positive reviews. So it's usually a lot easier to get feedback from people that had challenges or obstacles in their experience. So that's a great way that you can take that in and make sure that what you have on the website, what you have on your ads, what you have in your nurture campaigns speaks to all of that. Especially if they're choosing a competitor, why did they choose that competitor instead of you? And is there a way that we can close that gap? Yeah, those would be my two favorite plays that we have not touched on yet. But yeah, the detective hat goes in the sales process. That's my favorite one I have to say.
Nice, I love it. And the sales teams are such a gold mine for insight, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah, they're on the front lines. They're getting the objections thrown at them. So they can tell you exactly like how the customer feels and things.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yeah. Especially when ultimately we're trying to make their lives easier, right? We don't want to send the sales team leads that aren't going to close. So how can we weed those out? Makes everyone's lives easier.
Yep. And it creates that alignment with between marketing and sales, right? If marketing is going to
Yes.
sales and saying, hey, I want to, make you win versus your competitors and get more commission, what sales team is going to say no to that, right?
We're
So
going to put money in your pocket, everyone's pocket.
exactly, exactly. So Camille, one thing I'm curious about is, so we talked about search, and generally, thinking about our competitors' brands and our competitors' names. What are some ethical ways we can leverage those, right? Or any digital marketing plays we can use to kind of outplay them in terms of,
Yes.
their brand versus our brand.
Yes, keyword ethical. Great clarification. Because Google technically does frown upon using your competitors' names in ads, as an example, right? So, if I'm HubSpot, I don't really want to say that I'm the #1 Salesforce alternative. That doesn't mean that I can't target people that are searching for Salesforce. It just means that I want to go about it in a way that is clear and honest to the user. We don't want we don't want to trick people into clicking on an ad and thinking they're going to Salesforce. We want them to know that we're trying to bring them to HubSpot. So I've seen that's a very common strategy that we see companies use, is a competitor ad campaign, taking your competitors' keywords, targeting them, and showing your ads and showing that we are an alternative to XYZ without using their name, or the #1 rated, which is what Simply Safe was doing in that Ring ad. We're the #1 rated ad. They send that to people that are searching for Ring cameras. So that's certainly one way to do it. The caveat that I'll put out there is just keep in mind that make sure you have the budget for that type of campaign, because Google knows, right? If you're targeting Salesforce keywords, but you're not Salesforce, you're probably not who that user is searching for. So there usually is a bit of a premium to target those keywords when you're targeting another company, but it can be very effective, especially if you are a new entrant or if there is an industry leader. That's a great way for you to go around that. Another option that I really love, because it doesn't take ad budget, is comparison pages. So we do this a lot with software tools or local vendors. So if people are searching for HubSpot versus software, do you as HubSpot have a page that talks about the comparison? You want to make sure that you're a part of that conversation. You don't want to leave that only to the G2 crowds, the Toms of the world, to do that information for you, because then you're giving the power and the voice to somebody else. As HubSpot.com, as Ring.com, you are a very valid voice in the conversation, so you have a really high chance of ranking. So it's good to put that into the market. Before you launch those comparison pages, and those don't have to be very long. What's also really nice is you can templatize them. So maybe it's a chart with a list of features that shows how much more you have to offer than the competitors do. And you can rinse and repeat for all the competitors that you have. You want to make sure you have some value-based content and you're not only talking about a features comparison, but that's a great option. One thing that you can do to make sure that that's a worthwhile strategy for you is to use Google keyword research tool, SEMrush, to see if people are already searching for a comparison between the two of you. If they're not, we actually ran into an incident recently. We had a software client who wanted to build out these comparison pages, them versus competitor A. And so we were getting ready, we were doing some keyword research to figure out what keywords we should be using on that page. What we found out was not only was nobody searching for that comparison, our competitors were getting 3, 4, 5 times more branded searches than we were. And what that said to us was, we got to worry less about these comparison pages, and we got to focus more on brand awareness to make sure that our voice, our name is just as present as our competitors. Maybe you don't have the budget. Maybe it's not realistic for you to have as many searches in Google as your competitors do, but there are ways around that, like social, like display, that make sure that there's a cost-efficient way for you to create that brand awareness. Yes. Ethical ways to get ahead of your competitors.
Absolutely. 2 thoughts I'll share on the comparison page tactic. Make it honest, right? Like say like, hey, here's where we shine and here's who we're good for. and here's who we're not good for. Here's
Mhm.
where some other competitor might be a better fit. You'd be surprised at how much more effective that can be. If you're honest about your product and you list maybe some of the negatives even of your product versus competitors or things to consider, people will trust you more. They'll be like, okay, these guys aren't just talking about why they're the better solution, which is what they expect when they come to that page and it's got your URL on it. You're actually giving them valuable advice to help them make a buying decision. So come to these comparison pages in that mindset. And if you do that, ironically, your prospects will trust you more and probably end up choosing you over the competitors because you're actually helpful. The other thing I'll throw out there, kind of a spin on comparison pages, is one approach to do it is you versus competitors. So HubSpot versus Salesforce, for example, right? Another way you can do it is on non-branded terms, right? So you could target best marketing software and then create a page where you evaluate 10, 15, 20 different options. Good tactic is probably put yourself at the top, maybe feature yourself in that post. I think that's reasonable to do, right? But same overall approach applies, right? Be genuinely helpful in terms of, here's what these particular companies are good at as you list them out, right? So that's a way you can not just rank on competitor terms, but also show up more prominently for those non-branded terms by matching the searcher's intent, which is, hey, I'm shopping, I'm comparing options. If you can help them do that, you're much more likely to rank than a page that just talks about your product.
Yeah, those are great points, Jared, because to your second example of creating a list where you're going to give multiple examples or multiple options, while it may seem counterintuitive to be able to show people all the other options that are available, just by getting that person to your website, they're now somebody that you can remarket to, right? Without that, they're going to another website and somebody else is able to capture that traffic. So yeah, you want to be first on the list, but it's okay to show those other options. So love that. And then same thing with your first example, being honest. The last thing that we want to do is, try to convince somebody to buy when we're not really the best fit for them, because all that's going to do is create friction down the line, right? We don't want them, we're looking for sticky customers here. We don't want somebody that's going to sign, stay for 6 months, get irritated because they didn't get what they actually thought they were going to, leave, and then come a detractor for the business, right? Because now we've got somebody who is not just neutral, decided to go with somebody else. Now we've got somebody who might leave negative reviews and might be saying bad things about us just because we weren't the right fit for them. So it's better for them to find the right option, even if it's not us. And then maybe down the road, they'll know our name, we help them make that decision, and later there might be a fit.
Love it. Wonderful points. So Camille, this has been wonderful. We're coming up on time. We got about 10 minutes. Just a couple quick questions before we wrap here. One thing I'm curious about is, what are some mistakes you see folks making with, competitor marketing that we as marketers should generally avoid?
Good question. I would say the number one mistake that I see companies make or clients make is kind of latching onto a competitor, either because they have the largest market share, or sometimes, leadership may just fixate on one competitor because they feel like that company is doing all the right things. They're doing so much better than us. Maybe they have more investment dollars than we do. So clearly they're deploying it in all the right places. The biggest mistake I see is a lot of companies that will blindly copy and follow what those companies are doing, because just because they're doing it, doesn't mean that it works, right? Their website might be beautiful, but you don't know how well it converts. Yeah. And B, that might not be right for your audience, for your customers, for your target market. We ran into this situation with a client of ours who had a competitor that was getting a lot of market share, one of the more well-known names, but they were doing something interesting where when someone came to their website, they did a screen takeover and you had to enter your email address in order to scroll down the page. It was a software page. It's not like a G2 crowd, monster, whatever. And the leadership team said, well, if they're doing that, it's got to be working, right? They're doing that for a reason, but that doesn't mean that it's the best experience for the user. Sure, they're probably getting loads and loads of emails, but they're getting loads and loads of emails from people that are frustrated, that just want to read the content. And then if what they see behind that, gate is not exciting for them, they're going to be frustrated and go and never come back. So that's just one thing to be cognizant of, is just because a competitor is doing it doesn't mean that it's right. You know, the copycat strategy, while it can be nice, is not always the secret sauce for your company to be successful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's easy to, the other warning I'd throw out there is that just because a competitor's strategy is working for them doesn't mean that it makes sense for your business, right? Because your goal as a business and the marketing approach that supports that might be very different from your competitors. So always think, when considering your competitors, always consider, like, does this make sense for my business before you go implementing it and trying to do what your competitors are doing or something similar.
Yep.
Last question, Camille. So if there's one thing the marketers on this call could take away and start doing today to move their competitor marketing forward, what would it be and why?
Great question. Because a lot of what we've covered today, these are things that are going to, you got to sit down, you take time, got to block off an hour or so on your calendar. One quick and easy thing that I highly recommend everyone do, if you have not done this yet, is set up Google Alerts for your competitors. These are easy, these are free. And I would also recommend that you set up a little filter in your email to put them into a folder so they don't bombard you. But that's a really good way to keep a pulse on what your competitors are not only doing, but what they are doing that they feel is important in the market, right? So if they're putting out press releases, or if they are acquiring companies, or if there's changes in leadership, those are all things that you want to know as quickly as possible, so that you can account for those and just keep them front of mind. The other thing that I would say to do, and this is a kind of a fun one that you can bring in different people on your team to do. I love to do what I call like an above the fold homepage comparison, right? So, there's what we can, in the UX world, like a 3-second rule, right? Like what people see in the first 3 seconds is what they're going to retain from a website. So if you took a screenshot of your website above the fold and your competitor's websites above the fold and kind of send them out and have people give observations. What are competitors doing that is good or not good? Is it overwhelming? Do they have pop-ups coming up? Is their headline clear? Do they have videos in the hero and you've got static images? That section of your website is kind of like are you in the right place or not? Yep. So that's a really good way to kind of just get a feel for, where do you stand against your competitors? Are you all kind of on common ground? Are you doing a lot better than them, or are they doing things that you could deploy pretty quickly? That's an area that you can probably improve pretty quickly to see on your website.
I love it. That's fantastic. Camille, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I've learned a ton. I'm going to go get my Google Alerts set up right now. So I can start watching.
Recommend.
Yeah.
Before you log off today, everyone, set up a Google, even if it's for one competitor, and see how it goes. Just free and easy.
Appreciate it. Free and easy is amazing. Well, marketers appreciate that. Yeah. 2 quick things before we wrap. One is we post recordings of these sessions every week, 1 to 2 business days after. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We post them there every week. So if you miss a session, you'll be able to catch it. Secondly, wanted to let you guys know that our session next week on Wednesday is going to be on how to scale your SEO. So we're talking about how to scale up your SEO traffic and revenue once you've laid down the foundation. So we'll be covering a little bit of foundational basics, but going deep into how you can crank that organic traffic to the next level. So stay tuned for that. Hope you'll join us. And thank you guys so much for joining, and I hope to see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Happy to be here.
Happy Wednesday. Thanks, Camille.
Bye.
Bye.